Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into some notes you shared from a men's support group.
Oh, okay.
Specifically, one focused on life after divorce.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're going to be focusing on the experiences of one member in particular, Tom, who seems to have really found his footing after 28 years of marriage and a recent divorce.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a unique perspective, especially since he's also navigating single parenthood and
Yeah.
a whole new chapter in his life.
Right. And what really jumped out at me was that Tom seems genuinely happier now than he was during his marriage. He's even mentioned finding a new level of freedom. I think this could be a really valuable deep dive for anyone who's going through something similar, or even just looking for insights into relationships and personal growth.
Absolutely. Tom's willingness to be so open about his experiences, especially in a group setting, is quite remarkable. It speaks to the power of vulnerability and how sharing those raw, honest feelings can be incredibly cathartic.
Okay, so let's set the scene. We're at one of these support group meetings, and Tom is sharing updates about his life since his divorce was finalized a few months ago.
Okay.
He's got his kids half the time, moved into a new house, and even started dating again.
Wow.
But amidst all these changes, he keeps emphasizing this feeling of happiness and freedom he hasn't felt in years.
It's almost like he shed a skin he didn't even realize was weighing him down.
Yeah.
His story challenges this common perception that divorce automatically equals misery. Instead, there's this sense of liberation, of finally living life on his own terms.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that Tom's journey isn't all sunshine and roses, right?
Right.
He talks about the financial strain, the logistics of single parenting, those moments of doubt or loneliness that inevitably creep in.
Yeah.
But he always seems to circle back to this core feeling of being more content and authentically himself than he ever was in the marriage.
What's fascinating here is how this newfound happiness is interwoven with the quality of time he now has with his kids, even if it's less frequent than before. He actually mentions a conversation he had with another group member, Jane, about a year ago.
Oh, wow.
She shared the same sentiment.
Really?
That even though she only has her kids part-time, now the time they do spend together is much richer and more meaningful.
I find that so powerful. It really flips the script on what we traditionally think of as quality time.
Yeah.
It's not just about quantity. It's about being fully present, engaged, and creating those shared moments of joy, even if they're sprinkled throughout the week instead of being constant.
Exactly. And this ties into a concept psychologists call emotional regulation. It's essentially the ability to manage your emotions effectively, especially during challenging or stressful situations.
So how does this apply to Tom and his experience with his kids?
Well, think about it. Before, even though he had his kids full-time, he might have been stressed, distracted, or emotionally unavailable due to the issues within the marriage. Now, even though he has them less often, he's able to be more present, more patient, more emotionally in tune with their needs.
That makes total sense. It's like he's traded in quantity for quality, and in the process discovered this deeper sense of connection and fulfillment as a father.
Precisely. Now, another interesting aspect of Tom's story is how he talks about his ex-wife. This came up when another group member, Alexander, who's in the thick of his own divorce right now, asked Tom about his feelings toward his ex.
Yeah, this part really stood out to me. Because Tom's response is, well, it's not what you typically expect. He says he's reached a point of complete indifference towards his ex-wife. He's not angry, he's not resentful, he's not even particularly sad. He just doesn't feel much of anything.
That's a pretty profound statement, and it speaks to a psychological concept known as emotional detachment. It's a coping mechanism that some people use to protect themselves from emotional pain or turmoil, especially in situations like divorce, where there's been a significant loss or betrayal.
So in Tom's case, this indifference is actually a sign of progress, of moving on from the hurt and anger that often accompany divorce.
It can be, yes. But it's important to note that emotional detachment can be complex. Sometimes it's a healthy way to create distance and protect oneself, but in other cases, it could potentially mask deeper unresolved issues. It really depends on the individual and their specific circumstances.
That's an important distinction. So how do we know whether Tom's indifference is healthy or potentially indicative of something else?
Well, let's look at the context. Understand how he reached this point of indifference. Tom reflects on his 28 years of marriage. He describes it as a relationship that lacked true partnership. He felt like his ex-wife was controlling, always needing things her way, leaving him feeling unheard and unvalued.
He even uses the phrase my way or the highway, which paints a pretty stark picture of the power dynamics within their relationship.
Exactly. And based on what Tom shares, it seems like he was never truly happy in the marriage.
Right.
He was just going along with the status quo, suppressing his own needs and desires to keep the peace.
And now, post-divorce, he's finally able to rediscover those parts of himself that were stifled for so long. It's like he's reclaiming his own agency and autonomy, which is incredibly empowering.
Precisely. And this leads to a pretty striking observation that Tom makes about his ex-wife's reasons for filing for divorce.
Okay.
He believes she was deeply unhappy with her own life, and rather than looking inward, she projected that dissatisfaction onto him, blaming him for her own unhappiness.
He actually shares a pretty raw quote about this. My sister calls her a dick. I kind of feel my ex filed for divorce because she's trying to fill a hole in her life, and she blamed me for it, whereas I feel she should have been looking a bit closer to home.
That's certainly a blunt assessment, but it highlights a crucial point about self-awareness. If we're constantly looking for external sources to blame for our own shortcomings, we'll never truly grow or find lasting happiness.
So for Tom, his indifference towards his ex-wife seems to stem from this understanding that her actions were more about her own internal struggles than any real fault of his own.
Exactly. And it's important to note that despite his indifference, Tom still helps his ex-wife with practical matters, especially when it comes to their children. He talks about helping her set up a basketball hoop, giving her advice on tech issues, things like that.
Which to me speaks volumes about his maturity and commitment to co-parenting effectively. He's able to separate his personal feelings from what's best for their kids.
Absolutely. And he even points out a practical benefit of this indifference. It allows him to have calm, constructive conversations with his ex about things like childcare arrangements. He contrasts this with the constant tension and conflict that characterize their communication during the marriage.
So in a sense, this emotional detachment has actually made it easier for him to co-parent effectively and maintain a civil relationship with his ex-wife for the sake of their children.
Precisely. And this brings us to a really interesting point that Jake, the group facilitator, brings up.
Okay.
He picks up on Tom's comments about his ex-wife's lack of self-awareness and really dives into this theme of self-reflection and personal growth.
Interesting. So Jake, the facilitator, seems to agree that in situations like Tom's indifference can actually be a healthier response than harboring lingering feelings of love or hate.
Right. And he goes on to explain that indifference can act as a sort of emotional buffer, allowing you to step back from the intense emotions that often surround divorce.
Okay.
This detachment, he argues, can create space for healing and personal growth.
That makes sense. It's like by letting go of those strong emotions, whether positive or negative, you're able to see things more clearly and focus on your own well-being.
Precisely. And Jake emphasizes that this process of self-reflection, of turning inward and examining your own role in the relationship, is absolutely essential for personal growth.
And Tom seems to be embracing this wholeheartedly. He even credits the group with helping him realize that his marriage was ultimately doomed. He acknowledged they were on different paths and would never have reached a truly fulfilling destination together no matter how hard they tried.
It's a powerful realization, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it highlights the importance of compatibility and shared values in a long-term relationship. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, two people simply grow in different directions. And that's okay.
Absolutely. And Tom goes on to talk about his commitment to working on himself, particularly his emotional regulation, which he admits wasn't his strong suit during the marriage. He even gives this very relatable example of how he gets super focused and easily frustrated while driving in challenging conditions, like in bad weather or, heavy traffic.
It's a perfect illustration of how our emotions can hijack our behavior, even in seemingly mundane situations. And Tom's willingness to acknowledge this and actively work on it is inspiring. He's choosing to see this as an opportunity for growth rather than a personal failing.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that personal growth is a continuous journey, not a destination. We all have areas where we can improve, and it takes courage to confront those aspects of ourselves that we might not be proud of.
Couldn't agree more. And this leads to another key takeaway from Tom's story, the importance of having a supportive community. He repeatedly mentions how much the group has helped him process his emotions, gain new perspectives, and feel less alone in his journey.
It's a powerful testament to the fact that we don't have to go through difficult times alone. Sharing our vulnerabilities with trusted individuals can be incredibly healing and empowering. It allows us to connect on a deeper level, learn from each other's experiences, and find strength in shared humanity.
Absolutely. Now, remember Jake, the group facilitator?
Yes.
He shared this really insightful analogy about how he approaches his children's problems the same way he approaches life's challenges.
Oh, yes.
He said he focuses on solutions rather than blame. I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, Jeep explained that when his kids come to him with a problem, his first instinct isn't to figure out who's at fault or dwell on what went wrong. Instead, he guides them to brainstorm solutions and figure out how to move forward in a positive way. That's a fantastic approach. It shifts the focus from dwelling on the past to proactively creating a better future. It's about taking ownership of our actions and choices even when they've led to mistakes.
Exactly. And he applies this same principle to his own life. When faced with challenges, he doesn't waste energy on blame or self-criticism. Instead, he channels his energy into finding solutions and taking constructive action.
I love that. It's such a simple yet profound shift in mindset. It's about recognizing that we all make mistakes, but it's how we respond to those mistakes that truly defines us.
Right. It's about choosing to be proactive rather than reactive, solution-oriented, rather than problem-focused. And this is something that anyone can apply to their own lives, regardless of whether they're going through a divorce or any other major life change.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Tom's story and the wisdom shared in this men's support group, we're left with some pretty profound insights.
Indeed, Tom's journey highlights the importance of self-awareness, emotional regulation, and the power of finding a supportive community to help you navigate life's challenges.
And it's a reminder that even in the midst of heartache and upheaval, like a divorce, there's always potential for growth, healing, and discovering a deeper sense of happiness and fulfillment.
And let's not forget the valuable lesson about shifting from a blame-oriented mindset to a solutions-oriented one. It's a simple but powerful shift that can make a world of difference in how we approach challenges and create a more positive and fulfilling life.
Couldn't agree more. Now, before we go, we want to leave you with a thought-provoking question to ponder. What areas in your own life could benefit from a bit more self-reflection?
Perhaps there are situations where you tend to get easily frustrated, like Tom's driving example. How could you approach those situations differently?
Or maybe there are relationships where you feel unheard or unvalued. How could you communicate your needs more effectively?
We encourage you to explore these questions and see where they lead you. Remember, personal growth is an ongoing journey, and every step you take towards self-awareness and positive change is a victory worth celebrating.
Beautifully said. And for anyone listening who might be going through a divorce or separation, know that you're not alone. There are resources available like support groups and therapists who can help you navigate this challenging time. And remember, it's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's a sign of strength, not weakness.
Couldn't agree more. Seeking support from others, whether it's a therapist, a support group, or trusted friends and family, can make all the difference in navigating life's ups and downs.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking.
Thanks for joining us.
And remember, keep diving deep. It's interesting how this deep dive into Tom's story and his experiences in the men's support group actually connects to some broader societal trends.
Absolutely.
Like, we're seeing a growing emphasis on emotional intelligence, vulnerability, and self-care, especially among men.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, this support group is a microcosm of that larger cultural shift. Men are being encouraged to be more open about their emotions and challenges and to seek support when they need it.
And this shift is so important because it challenges traditional masculine norms that often discourage men from expressing vulnerability or seeking help.
Yeah, it's like those old stereotypes of men needing to be stoic and strong are finally starting to crumble.
Right.
And in their place, we're seeing a more nuanced and authentic understanding of masculinity emerge.
Exactly. And it creates space for men to connect with each other on a deeper, more meaningful level.
Yeah.
Just like we see in this support group.
They're sharing their experiences, offering each other advice and encouragement, and really creating this sense of brotherhood and shared understanding.
And it's not just about individual growth. It's about creating healthier relationships, families, and communities as a whole.
Right. Because when men are more emotionally aware and able to communicate effectively, it benefits everyone around them.
Yeah.
Their partners, their children, their friends, their colleagues. It really has a ripple effect.
Absolutely. So Tom's story and the insights we've gained from this deep dive are not just relevant to people going through divorce. They're valuable lessons for anyone navigating the complexities of life and relationships.
I think that's a great point to end on. Tom's journey is a powerful reminder that even amidst life's inevitable challenges, there's always opportunity for growth, healing, and self-discovery.
And that finding happiness and fulfillment often requires us to look inward, to embrace our imperfections, and to cultivate meaningful connections that support our journey.
Beautifully said. And for anyone listening who might be going through a divorce or separation, know that you're not alone. There are resources available, like support groups and therapists who can help you navigate this challenging time. And remember, it's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's a sign of strength, not weakness.
Couldn't agree more. Seeking support from others, whether it's a therapist, a support group, or trusted friends and family, can make all the difference in navigating life's ups and downs.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking.
Thanks for joining us.
And remember, keep diving deep